All right, so welcome back to the channel, Real Life Ryan. I'm Tranquil Dionysian, and we're back to talk about Berserk again.
Hell yeah, man. Happy to do so. Happy to talk about Berserk and happy to be back on your channel, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to have you back. And last time we talked about Berserk, I believe it was around late April, early May, and that was prior to the announcement that they were going to be continuing the chapters. Before that, we were thinking, well, what's going to happen with the series? Are they just going to leave it as is? Kentaro Miura's no longer around, but Studio Gaga and Kouji Mori decided that they wanted to continue the story. Kouji Mori put out a little piece where he was talking about the fact that it would have been Kentaro Miura's wish to continue the story since he knew all the plot points and he talked about the story with him ad nauseum. At least that's what it sounded like. So my first question to you is going to be, how did you feel when that first, sort of came through the whole Twitter waves? And what are your thoughts about Studio Gaga and Kouji Mori so far?
Okay, so for me, I very specifically remember that night is because I was planning to go to bed. I was like all set. I was done with my day. Already made all my videos I was going to make for that day. It's like midnight. Yeah, and I think in Japan, that's like 7 or 8 a.m. I don't know what it is, but, so I'm good. I'm like, all right, my day is done. And then all of a sudden, my phone just starts blowing up. And, like, everyone is DMing me and sending me shit on Twitter and, retweeting stuff. I'm like, what is wrong with people right now? I'm trying to go to bed. And then I saw what it was, and I was like, wait, hold on. Is this real? Like, is this a fake post? Like, the first time you see something like that, you're just wondering, like, is this legit? So then you have to do your own research. So then I found it came from the official, Berserk Twitter page, and I was like, okay, so this is really legit. And it was a full, 2 full pages that I think Kouji Mori and, the studio wrote. So there was a lot of information. It wasn't just, a quick tweet, it was, a full thing. So, I read through the entire thing. Then I researched Kouji Mori because, to be 100% honest, I wasn't really familiar with who Kouji Mori was. I knew of him, but I'd never read any of his manga. I really don't know how he writes. I didn't know what his style was. So, I was clueless on that. I didn't really know anything about him. So, anyway, so after I first got over that, I was super stoked. I was like, this is crazy that they're actually going to continue Berserk, because I always felt like it would be a good idea to do so for a couple of reasons. I mean, number one, it was this man's life work, and he got so far with it, and you can tell, we're reaching towards where the story needs to go. By the time the final Miura chapter came out, it's, I don't know how much percentage-wise is left, but you can tell we're there, man. We're getting ready to, go into it, and I honestly felt like it would be a little bit of a disservice to not at least tell his ending. If they did that with just releasing what story notes he had left or just a summary, I would have been cool with that. I'm not saying they had to finish the manga, but to leave it where it was, for me personally, I felt like if I was creating a story, if I was doing something and I worked 30 years on something, I would want people to see it to its conclusion, And I guess I was just happy to see that Miura kind of felt the same way. If he didn't, I wouldn't have been upset. If we never got another Berserk continuation, if we never got another chapter, I could live with that, because obviously, what Miura wanted is the most important thing. It's not what the fans want, it's what Miura wants. So I would have been okay with that. But I really appreciated the fact that he kind of had the same sentiments, and now we have this guy, Kouji Mori, who's been by his side the last 30 years. They've been best friends. They've constantly talked about the project together, taking over the helm. And in my mind, there's no better person on planet Earth to take over Berserk, because literally nobody else knows the story as deeply and as intimately as this man would, And I feel like that, combined with trying to fulfill Miura's vision, combined with the studio that Miura specifically trained, I think it's a perfect storm of events to create the conclusion. I still understand fans that don't want it, or that don't, or even that don't like it. I can understand that, but I think that there's no better scenario that could possibly exist right now than what we got. So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would echo your sentiments. Yeah, like you said, I didn't know who Koji Mori was prior to the announcement. I never read Holy Land. I did after the fact, but yeah, I was just like, who is this guy? And then you find out that he wrote a manga in which he detailed his life with Kentaro Miura. And it's like, holy cow, this guy was intimately aware of everything that was going on, not only within the series, but within his life. So who else would know more about the series and about like this man's ambitions and his thought processes than his best friend in the world? So yeah, when I found out about that, I was like, wow, this is kind of like a best case scenario. So it's one of those things where it's like, we were all so sad, and we were all so heartbroken when Kentaro Miura tragically left this world. But it was almost like a blessing that there was still that one person out there that had this intimate knowledge with him and was willing to carry on the work. And when you read that manga that he wrote about Kentaro Miura's life and their friendship, he talks about the fact that he was kind of giving up on the whole prospect of writing manga himself, and Kentaro Miura was the one that sort of motivated him and pushed him. So it almost seems right that he's the one that continues, the whole progression of the story. So yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled. Now, speaking of that, we know that Studio Gaga kind of had a little bit of a pet project, if you will, in the terms of Duranki. That was sort of their testing ground for getting ready for Berserk. Well, guess what? Test is over. Time for the real thing. And so my question is how do you feel that Koji Mori and Studio Gaga are doing so far with the 5 chapters that they've released?
So far, so good as far as I'm concerned, man. I think that if you really want to get like as minute critiques as you possibly can, there are definitely critiques to make, but I think as overall continuing the story in the way that it would go, in the way that Miura planned it, I think that it's been excellent. I think it's been they said that they were going to have 6 chapters left of the whole like Elf Island Fantasia segment. We've got 5 so far, and every single one of them increases the intensity and propels the story and gives us some more lore. And I don't think, personally, I've heard other people say otherwise, but personally, I don't think it feels rushed. I think that each chapter did something very specific. The first one, we got that face-to-face Guts and Griffith. Second one, we got the battle. Third one, we got, I think, Casca being taken. It's just like, I feel like each one really did something specific. Obviously, when you're dealing with like action scenes and battle scenes, things are going to go quickly. But to me, that's not any different than what we've had in Berserk before. You know what I mean? We've had action scenes like when Guts is escaping Vertanis, or other moments where things go very fast within a chapter. I think that maybe the majority of the criticisms are from people that have binged the series and are now reading it chapter by chapter, and it's a little bit more difficult because you only get a little bit and then you got to wait an entire month, so it feels like you're not getting anything. But if you look at all 5 chapters together, look how much we got in 5 chapters. Like, it's crazy. So I mean, I think they're doing a great job. The only other thing I would say is that I think that people also need to understand that obviously this is not Kentaro Miura, and it never will be. Like, we are never going to get Miura level Berserk ever again. And nor should we, because that wouldn't make sense, Like, and this might sound a little woo-woo, I don't know what it is, but when an artist creates something, it's not just Miura drawing lines on a piece of paper. Like, he's literally putting his soul into the story. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's literally putting his heart, his soul into the page. And there's only, everybody's soul is so uniquely different, and there's no way that you're ever going to be able to recapture that feeling ever again. So I think in a world where Kentaro Miura is not with us, this is the best that we are going to get. Is it ever going to be Miura? No. Is that unfortunate? Absolutely. But I still think it's really, really good for what we got, and it's continuing what he wanted to say.
Yeah, I would echo your sentiments again. Now, I was actually having a discussion with a friend of mine, and I was comparing it to like Kobe and Michael Jordan. Kobe Bryant's patterned his whole game after Michael Jordan. He did the fadeaway. He stuck the tongue out. He had the dunks and everything. He even would walk like him and talk like him. If you watch interviews, he was trying to mimic the way he was talking, like even the cadence and everything. So I feel like that's what they're doing. And if you told me, hey, you're going to get a Kobe Bryant version of the Berserk story instead of the Michael Jordan story, I'd be like, well, I mean, Michael Jordan's the GOAT, but you're going to give me Kobe, I'll definitely take that.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a good analogy.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like you're getting the best version of Berserk without Miura. And I mean, the thing is like when you go back to say like some of those early arcs and chapters, but prior to me and you reading it, there's always those people that when you're in the middle of the story unfolding and things don't necessarily make sense, you're going to critique it. You're going to criticize it, be like, what is Miura thinking here? Like back in the day, 10, 15, 20 years ago, people were like, has Miura lost it? Is he off his rocker? I mean, people were complaining about the fact that they never left the boat. And like now they're complaining about how things are going along too quickly. And it's like, wait for the story to unfold, see how things sort of manifest themselves on the page, see how everything comes about, and then go back and look and see if everything kind of made sense and everything is sort of complementing the overall story. And that's when I think people sort of have a better appreciation and understanding of it, because it's not always going to make sense in the moment, and it shouldn't. I mean, you want to be surprised when that ultimate conclusion plays out. But I think so far it's been very good. I guess the only criticism I would have is maybe some of the details and like the artwork hasn't quite been there. I know in the most recent chapter when Elfhelm was being destroyed and we saw all the elves and Danin were dissipating into light and everyone was confused and scared. There was a moment in particular where they showed Serpico, Isdro, and the various mages standing around. I think Kuka was one of the mages, and then they had some of the other mages, and they didn't draw the faces in. They were all blank. And I was like, they could have added those details because it's a very somber moment, and I feel like if you really put in those details and just accentuate that scene becomes that much more powerful. Not that it wasn't powerful, it's just it's something that could have really enhanced the situation.
It feels like something maybe Miura would have done.
Yes.
But not necessarily the team. Yeah, no, I got you.
And I guess one of the things, maybe it's not so much the staff, maybe it's Young Animal, maybe it's, the people that are sort of the uppers, the bosses that are sort of telling them, hey, we're going for this monthly deadline, like, you guys got to stick to it. Miura didn't really care so much about deadlines. If he wanted to make a page look as perfect as possible, he was going to take that extra time and screw the deadline. I'll get it done when I get it done. But he had that cachet. He had that power within the studio where they're like, okay, well, we know this guy's the Michael Jordan of manga. We'll just let him take his time because we know he's so good at it. Whereas Studio Gaga and Kouji Mori, they're like, hey guys, pick up the pace here. Get it done.
Yeah. No, that's probably true. I always wonder, too, because they have been monthly since it came back. So I wonder if they're trying to keep that consistency. Like, I wonder if they are literally, like you said, like they've got a deadline and they're trying to do this literally monthly, or if we're going to go into like another hiatus at some point. I also wonder how much they were working on this before, in between the last Miura chapter and now. So there are still a lot of questions. There are a lot of questions about like how they plan to conclude it. Is this just going to keep going monthly? Are we going to get a hiatus after this next chapter? I really don't know. I really have no idea.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, Kentaro Miura passed away May of last year, and then we got the announcement, I think, 13 months after that. So it's possible in those 13 months they were kind of building up their bank, as it were. They were producing chapters, and now they're like continuing. So maybe they already got 5 chapters in the bank and they're continuing this whole monthly cycle. Who knows? But it's a good thing and a bad thing. I love more Berserk. I mean, if you tell me there's a chapter in November, December, January, I'm gonna take it. I mean, I love seeing the story, but I don't want the quality to diminish so much that it's compromised, and I wouldn't say it has at this point. I feel like everything on the page has been has been exciting, has been well drawn. There was that one picture, I think it was 366 of Griffith, you know, the one where he's kind of looking over at Guts like this.
Oh, yeah.
He's looking at him. He's got like that little smile on his face. I thought that was gorgeous. Like, if you tell me Miura drew that, I would have believed you. I thought it was that good.
Well, that's what I'm wondering too. Like, imagine, somebody starts reading Berserk years from now and they don't know, right? Maybe they don't know that Miura passed away, or they don't know when he did, right? I'm wondering, if you were to read straight through, if you were to binge, how long it would take you to notice. You know, how long would it actually take you to notice the difference? And I don't think you would notice immediately. I think it might take a chapter or two before you start to recognize that it's that the artwork looks different. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I think, let's get away from the whole Kouji Mori Studio Gaga thing. Let's actually get into the meat of Berserk now. And so one of the things I wanted to talk about that's kind of been circulating among the fandom is the whole Casca abduction and Griffith's overall plans.
Yes.
How did you interpret that situation, and what do you think is going to happen at Falconia with Casca?
Well, clearly he's going to marry Casca and make Guts watch the marriage. No, that's one of the things that one of the few things that I predicted that was actually correct. I said that if Griffith was going to show up at the island, so not to toot my own horn, but I predicted that the Moonlight Boy is going to show up on the island, and then I predicted that when Griffith transforms back, he was going to take Casca away. And though the reason in the manga hasn't been given, thank you, my theory is a couple of things. I think it makes sense for a few reasons. Number one is I think that Griffith recognizes that Casca is a weakness of him, because with being fused with the Moonlight Boy, I believe that Griffith is probably physically incapable of harming Casca in any way. I think the influence of the boy is so strong that even when he's Griffith, he's not able to harm her. And like the first clue to that was at the Hill of Swords way back when the falling debris was coming, Guts was trying to get to Casca, he couldn't reach her in time, Griffith saved Casca. There's no tactical reason for him to save her, I guess maybe to just rub it in Guts' face, but besides that, I think it was instinctive. I think it was because the Moonlight Boy is part of him, he saved her. And also right after that happens, Griffith immediately tells Zod, hey, let's go. So it's very strange that he's letting Zod fight Guts, but then why in that moment, right after saving Casca, he says to go. I think it's because he recognized Casca would be a weakness for him and he didn't want to be there. And that was before the Moonlight Boy started like taking control at the full moon and coming to visit her each time. So if I'm Griffith and I know that every single full moon I'm going to lose control of my body and then I'm going to go traveling across the goddamn planet to go find Casca, wouldn't it make more sense for me to just take Casca and bring her back to where I am? So then when the moon hits, I don't got to go like flying all over the world. She's right there, right? So I think that that's the main reason. I think he recognizes Casca as a weakness. He knows he's going to go to her anyways when he transforms, so it would just make more sense for him to bring her to Falconia. So that's the reason I'm going with. I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to pose another question to you really quick. You were talking about the whole situation on the Hill of Swords. Now, you think that was purely the Moonlight Boy, or do you think that Griffith, having understood that he betrayed the Band of the Hawk, I mean, you don't think there was any remnants like of, well, I kind of owe this to her. Like, I took away Judo and Pippin and Corcus. I raped her. I mean, the least I could do is just save her from a couple boulders falling on her.
Right. To be honest, I think that any of that is within Griffith is there because of the Moonlight Boy's influence. So I guess it's a little bit complicated, but I guess it's not that Griffith is incapable of feeling things, but I think the reason he can feel things is because he's fused with the boy. So I think if he was just pure God hand and that didn't happen, whatever, he wouldn't give a fuck. But because of that, he now has more of an inclination to have a little bit of feeling. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah, that's a good point, because, when he went through the whole ceremony during the eclipse, prior to meeting the idea of evil, his last tear crystallized, kind of symbolizing
the final
that.
Tear, yeah.
The final tear, and it was just kind of like, okay, you're no longer going to experience emotions, you're just going to be this pure ball of hate. So yeah, that's a good point about the Moonlight Boy. Yeah, It totally makes sense why Griffith is doing what he's doing. I've thought about this a lot too, and one of the things I was thinking about is when we think about the Moonlight Boy, the first time we saw him was at the beach. Casca instinctively, her motherly instinct kicked in, and she grabbed him at everything, and then we saw Zod off in the mountains and everything. So even if Griffith doesn't retain the memories of the Moonlight Boy, even if he doesn't know about this, Zod is telling him everything that happened. I'm wondering, if this was all part of the plan, why didn't... Because we had the situation on the beach, and then we had the situation on the boats with the sea god. Why didn't, Griffith... I mean, I guess he didn't transform into himself there, but why didn't he wait and then take Casca right there on the boat prior to reaching Elfhelm? Unless maybe he wanted them to get to Elfhelm because destroying it was all part of his plan, and then he was going to take her away. So, I watched your previous video about the one where I think you were talking about like Donnan and the elves and everything, and you were comparing the tree to like the mansion of the spirit tree. So maybe that was all part of his plan. He wants to get rid of all the good in the world, as it were, and he didn't know where Elfhelm was. Maybe it was protected by that barrier, and he's just like, I can't fucking figure out where this place is. I know they're going there. I'll just let them get there, lead me to the destination, and then I'll take Casca. I guess I just worked it out in my head right now. So
no, that makes perfect sense. And honestly, when you were first talking about that, I was going to say like probably the Moonlight Boy was the one that decided to leave. But when you said that, I was like, actually, that makes more sense because he did need to... I would imagine he would need to destroy that island and destroy that tree. And then I was also thinking about when Guts first gets onto the boat, and how he is falling asleep and he looks on the hilltop and he can see Griffith from a distance. Again, perfect moment for Griffith to do something if he wanted to, but he didn't. And like you said, maybe he's just like, oh, well, they're going to Elfhelm. I'll find them eventually. And then that's how he finds his way there. So maybe it all ties together, man.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of like what he's planning to do with Casca, I produced a video about this. I don't know. I've been going through this back and forth in my mind. I don't know if he's going to have like the apostles torture her. I don't think that would happen because the Moonlight Boy's there, so he would probably want to protect her. But he would want to make sure she doesn't get out, because if she gets out, then he's got to find her again, because the Moonlight Boy is eventually going to want to go to her. So he's probably going to have to keep her restrained somehow, some way. And then I was also thinking about Sonya. Now, Sonya has the ability to see the future, and we know that her abilities somewhat mimic that of Shirka in a way. She's not a mage, but she has the ability to sort of look within people's minds and read their thoughts. She was doing this with Shirka, where Shirka was thinking about something and she answered her question without even talking to her. So I'm wondering if she could peer into Casca's mind and see the eclipse. And I produced a video about speculating on, well, if she did see this, how would her image of Griffith change? Would it change, or would she just overlook it like the whole event with Ganishka? You know how everyone was panicking, they saw the apostles and the monsters, and they're like, this is Griffith's army? What the heck? And Sonya's like, just shut your fucking face. We're going to defeat this Ganishka monster. It's all going to be good, and then we're going to have the greatest place in the world to live. So it's going to work out. Don't worry, guys. I wonder if she'll be able to overlook that and be like, well, it was just one girl. Who cares? It's Griffith being Griffith. Or if it's going to change her perception and be like, wait, why did Griffith do this? Like, and especially because of the fact that she's got romantic feelings for Griffith and she sees her raping another woman. Like, she's going to be like, what the heck? You know?
That is something very, very interesting I would love to see happen. To go back to the beginning of what you're saying, I think that Casca will be enclosed, but I don't think she's going to be in like a prison cell. I think she's going to be free to roam to an extent. I think Griffith would want her to see, like, look what I create, kind of like when Rickert was there, you know, like, look what I've created. But I definitely do agree that her and Sonya are probably going to have an interaction, and it's so crazy because I could see it going either way. I could see Sonya looking into that and seeing like images of the eclipse and just like understanding, well, he had to do what he had to do to get us here, you know, like I just believe in him so much that, you know, I can forgive all of his sins. But I could also see it going the other way, because she wouldn't be able to like share her vision with anyone else. She would be kind of like stuck seeing that. You know what I mean? So like, it would be very, very interesting to see Sonya, of all people, be the one to like betray Griffith in some way, you know, to like maybe want to escape from him, or maybe want to help Casca escape, or maybe want to like tell the people the truth, like to have the most devoted character to him be the one that ultimately like goes the other way. And then she already has a friendship with Shirake. Maybe that could lead her over the Guts' side. I just think that would be really interesting, but I could definitely see it going either way though.
Well, and that's why I was thinking that could be the reason why she betrays him, because out of all the people in Griffith's army, who was the person you thought would least likely betray him?
Exactly,
Probably Sonya. So that would, a lot of people wouldn't see that coming. And you know how Sonya has that ability where she can sort of see how a battle's going to unfold. She could see all the paths and tell Griffith where to go to get to the leader and kill him. I was thinking, if she knows where Casca is located within Falconia, when the Guts party gets there, she could sort of communicate with Shirka and let her know, hey, take this path, and that's how you'll get to Casca. So
that would be great. I would love that, honestly.
Yeah, so I mean, who knows? I mean, it's pure headcanon at this point, but that was something I was kind of throwing around in my head.
Yeah, I could definitely see it going that way, and I would honestly really, really like that. And that would give Guts' group definitely an edge too, if they had this sort of like clairvoyant that could see like tactics of battle and stuff like that to plan ahead of time. Add that with fucking Rickert and Salah and whatever kind of crazy steampunk shit they come up with. Then you have fucking, upgraded Dragon Slayer. Let's go, man. Like, they got a chance. They got the
Skull Knight too, and the various
Skull
mages.
Knight.
Maybe Morta's like, hey, get a look at these Griffith.
Dude, it would distract me. I mean, I'd be dead, so fuck it.
Oh, boy. So, yeah, we talked about Griffith and Casca. One of the other things I want to talk about that happened in the most recent chapters was the disappearance of all the elves in Danen. And we never got confirmation that Puck and Ivalera were gone. I don't even think we saw Ivalera in the most recent chapter, did we?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I can't remember. I just remember the one at the beginning with Puck. And his wings had a discoloration. It looked like there were some shining bright parts. So I thought that was kind of the indication, the foreshadowing that he was going to disappear with the rest of the elves. What were your overall thoughts about this, and how do you think it's going to play out in the story going forward?
I was honestly really surprised. I didn't expect something like that to happen. I guess my understanding of the physical and astral world overlapping I didn't think that was a possibility. I thought like they were here to stay. Like I thought that was basically what it was. But that's why I made that spirit tree video afterwards, because the chapter got me thinking about like why this would happen, and that was the only explanation I could come up with, is that the spirit tree kind of binds them to that area. And it's like talked about. That's the thing about Berserk. Like it gives you like a little piece of lore, but then just 1,000 questions surround it. But it's been talked about before that like 1,000 years ago, a lot more astral creatures kind of roamed within the physical world. But it was also talked about like there used to be like these spirit trees. Like I remember when during the whole Rosine segment, she's in the Misty Valley and Puck says like, no, you're right, elves used to be here. Like I can sense that they used to be. And like to me it's like that was probably like a destroyed spirit tree of some sort. When Flores went down, that area went to shit. And so I think that makes sense in that way. And also when you think about that, like the astral world has layers upon layers upon layers of different places, different dimensions, whatever. So I guess it would make sense that even if the whole world is like an interstice and like covered with the astral world, it's still not the entire astral world, which is obvious because the abyss isn't there sucking people into hell. So not the entire astral world, just a good portion of it. So I guess it makes sense. But I would still say, and this would be probably my first main complaint about the new Berserk chapters if they do this. If Puck disappears, okay. But if Puck disappears off screen, like we didn't see it happen, I think that would be a huge total mistake for the story. Because Puck is an OG, man. He's been there from the very beginning. He's a super important character, especially to Guts. You know, he's been the conscience on his shoulder, you know, the Jiminy Cricket of fucking Berserk this whole time. Like, if he disappears and we don't even see it and we don't see Guts' reaction to it, I think that would be like a horrible fucking mistake.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, geez, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they're going to go back in time or if in the next chapter they're going to show like just a mini flashback of him disappearing. Mm-hmm. It's hard to say. Now, a lot of people in the community when that chapter first released, they were saying to me, "Hey, Puck and all the elves are dead." And my first reaction was, "Guys, don't spoil the chapter before I read it."
yeah, for real. I hate that.
And so I'm like going into this chapter thinking, what the hell's going to happen here? Like, are the apostles coming in? Are they going to destroy everything? Is Griffith going to use his femto devil powers to eliminate everyone? I wasn't sure. And then when I saw the light dissipating, I was like, well, hold on a second. This doesn't necessarily mean that they're dead. Because when I read that chapter, I immediately thought of Quipalth. The intermingling layers of the astral realm with the physical realm. Mm-hmm. And that allowed Slam to manifest within the troll intestines. And I was thinking, is Elfhelm sort of this overlapping realm, but in a positive way? And was it sort of all being held together by the cherry tree and these good swirling thoughts around the island? Because remember in Albion, how all those dark creatures, those dark oozing specters that seem to be on Elfhelm right now, they were sort of, you know, climbing up the tower and everything, and they were just pervading the land, and they were sort of given this power because of everyone's desires for the savior, for Griffith. And I'm thinking, well, because Griffith destroyed everything on the island, all the positive vibes are gone. And maybe that's sort of, I don't know, maybe it's taking all the positivity away, and all these spirit creatures that are reliant on that can't survive anymore. Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
that makes sense to me. I mean, because you got to imagine, like, there's good energy, there's dark energy. You know, it's the yin and yang of everything. It's the every potential choice. So that would make total sense to me.
Yeah. So I mean, and to that end, I was thinking, well, just because the spirit tree is gone and just because the positive energy is gone doesn't mean that these characters are necessarily gone. One piece of proof that we have is Gedfring was talking about, I think it was like chapter 360, about the possibility of summoning daemons. And he reminded Shirka of the fact that you could possibly summon Flora in the future as a daemon. And, you know, the four cardinal kings that Shirka summoned when they were in Enoch Village, you know, Gedfring was talking about that they were heroes and mages and sorcerers from the past that are no longer with us. So even if these people are no longer with us, there's still a possibility that we could see them in the future. So I'm not buying into that whole possibility that they're dead. I think we will still see Puck and Ivalera and Donan.
No, absolutely. They're absolutely not dead. They're just not able to be within the physical world anymore. That's it. So they are, you know, phased back into whatever dimension that, you know, can handle their astral beings. But yeah, they're definitely not dead. I did see people saying that when the chapter came out as well, but I would definitely disagree with anyone that says that they're dead.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I'm wondering, I mean, you know, they kind of tease that whole possibility of Shirka summoning Flora as like a daemon. Will Gedfring be able to summon Donan as like a daemon in the future when they go to Falconia? Because I would imagine at this point the Guts party, well, whatever's left of it, you know, Guts, Shirka, Serpico, Farnese, I wonder if they're going to go to Falconia at some point, and then they're going to bring the mages along with them, and they're going to start summoning these daemons and such, and kind of have that big battle.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I would think so, man. I would think, why not at this point? Like, you know, take everyone that's left, get on my boy Roderick's ship, and start heading back. Just let's hope this boat arc is a lot shorter than the last one. But, you know, once they get there, though, like, I'm all for that. It makes sense. Griffith's got an army. I mean, I guess Guts isn't really an army, but you could call it like a gang, or something. Yeah. It's a small group of people, but still very powerful people, though. If Shurikei, could still use magic, and Farnese and Gedfring and stuff, I mean, you still have very, very strong people here. Obviously Skull Knight and everyone too. So like, like, I don't know. There's a chance. I don't know. There's a chance.
And I was also thinking about this too. Now, Skull Knight is a soul attached to a suit of armor. Now, I don't think this would happen because he's so pivotal to the story, but like, would his soul like detach from the armor because of what happened on Elfhelm, or is he okay? Like, is Hanar's like ability to keep him contained with that suit of armor like strong, where it's not overridden by that fact? Like, I don't know.
I gotta imagine he'd be okay. I mean, the man's been wandering around for 1,000 years. He's got to have some kind of like ace in the hole if that were to happen. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I mean, Elfhelm's been around for 1,000 years, or we would presume it is.
That's true. Yeah.
But yeah, I think he's okay. I think, I don't think he would disappear.
Yeah, I'm wondering if, because of where the story is right now, if you were going to place like more of a Skull Knight backstory, or at least like a little bit more of an explanation, I feel like we're pretty much in an area where it would make the most sense to do so.
Yes.
I don't know if they were going to do that, but like, I think it would work as a really good segue in between the destruction of Elfhelm and charging towards Falconia. I think if you were going to place it anywhere, it would probably make the most sense right now.
Yeah, and, like, the whole boat arc, when they were going from Virtanis to Elfhelm, I mean, that took something like 40 chapters and 9 years. I would imagine it's not going to take as long. I feel like
it's the perfect time for Skull Knight to tell a story. Be like, we're going to be here for 9 years, guys. You want to hear what happened 1,000 years ago?
Well, and that would make a lot of sense. He tells the story, and then they're traveling as that story is sort of taking place. And then like, oh, hey, we're here, guys, like after the story is done. So, yeah, like you said, I think this is like that perfect moment for something like that to occur.
Yeah, I would love to see that, man. I would love to see that. And I think it would set up the finale quite well. If they are going to do something, and this is like going out with like pure fan theory, but if they are going to do something with Void, and if he is extremely important to everything that's been happening, and if he is like, if there is a plan beyond Griffith, it would make so much sense to learn about who that guy was, how he betrayed Skull Knight, or whatever happened between those two, and then just like plow right into the finale.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the things I was also considering too, now, obviously Kouji Mori told the fandom that he was going to only do the parts of the story that he remembered. He wasn't going to add any sort of supplementary information. And I wanted to know kind of what I know we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but what your opinion of that is. Do you think that it's a good idea? Because remember when we got those first 2 chapters at once, and the chapters were only about 14 pages in length. And I think the only difference if Kentaro Miura was alive is that he would have filled out those chapters. So we would have got a little more detail here and there. Do you think it's a good idea to just stick to what he knows, or do you think maybe he should have a little more liberty to sort of like, I almost think about it like, those drawings where you connect the dots? I think what Kouji Mori is like, I know all the dots of what Kentaro Miura left behind. I'll just connect it. Or do you think maybe he should deviate a little bit, still connect the dots, but maybe create a little bit of creativity in there?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I think it's going to depend on a few things. I think that as he continues to write it, I think he's going to get more comfortable with it, and then probably be willing to add a little bit of his own flavor in there. But I also think that a lot of it's going to come with the feedback of the fans, which is either a good thing or a bad thing. Because I don't know what the overall consensus is. I think it's good, but I could be wrong because I stay within the same few circles, So I'm mostly surrounded by fans that like it, but I get those fans that don't. But it's a little bit like 60-40 right now, but it might be more even than I think it is. Because I would say that if it's going well and fans are liking it and he's getting more comfortable with it, I would imagine as time goes on, he would be more willing to expand a little bit, not change anything, that Miura was doing, but just add in a little flair of his own, a little extra dialogue with these characters, a little side conversation over here, things like that as it goes along. But I fear that if it gets a lot of negativity and a lot of hate and a lot of people are expressing that they don't like it, he's going to get more
defensive,
conservative, self-conscious. Yeah. And in that case, he's probably just going to connect the dots and not try to do anything else. So I don't know. I think it's really going to depend on the reception.
Yeah, I know. I kind of... This was maybe one of my minor gripes. It's not by any means meaning that I didn't like it, but I felt like the first couple of chapters, and I guess all 5 for that matter, like, Guts hasn't really said much. Like, he's kind of had a few grunts and huhs here and there, but it hasn't been a lot of dialogue from Guts, and I'm wondering if, like, Miura just told him what was going to happen to Guts, and he's like, I don't want to add anything I don't know about, or I'm wondering if it's done intentionally because he's like, well, Guts is just so emotionally distraught by the situation that he's at a loss of words. He can't even, like, comprehend what's going on because Elfhelm has been such a peaceful place. It's been tranquility, and, it's almost been, like, it's almost put the fandom in a daze, if you will. Like, man, like, this isn't Berserk, this is like fairy time. And now it's like, hey, guess what? It is Berserk, and we're going to destroy the whole damn island. Remember Donnan, who saved Casca's memories? Well, she's gone now. And, oh yeah, by the way, Griffith's going to take Casca away from Guts. Yeah, it's a lot to process, and maybe Guts is just like, I don't even know what to say anymore. And one of the things that I talked about in my last chapter was that, Guts, after Griffith took Casca and we saw him reaching for him, the first thing that he thought of was, I couldn't even land a single blow on him. And I was like, is that what he should be thinking right now? Because he just had Casca ripped away from him. I'm like, why wouldn't he be like, Casca, my love, like, why have you been taken away from me again?
Right. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. I think that on the one hand, I can understand him not saying much because of all the intensity that's happened in the last couple of chapters. I think the real test of Mori writing dialogue will be probably now. Now that, the dust is settling and the characters have to regroup and decide what's going on and what they're going to do next. So that'll be like the real test of the dialogue back and forth. As for Guts, I think it makes sense for the most part. I get what you're saying, like him saying, like, I couldn't land a single blow. It does seem like a very basic line. I think that I might have, like, my own, I don't know. Because when I saw that scene, I was thinking of, like, Guts just, I thought it was like a combination of everything Guts had been through to that point. Like, I've literally done all of this stuff. I've had these upgrades. I traveled across the world. I got Casca here. And then when I was finally face to face with him, I couldn't even land one blow. So it was kind of like no matter what I did, everything that I've done, I still can't even land one blow. So I think I took that line to be like a little bit heavier than maybe it was intended to be. It was just like my thought process with it, because I'm just thinking about Guts' entire fucking, like, his whole journey up to this point. But as for, like, the line itself, it is like a little, like, there definitely is more that could be said, should be said there. So I don't know. I guess I'm 50-50 with it.
Yeah, I guess, at the time I was like, What is Casca just a sack of potatoes? I mean, she was Potato Casca. He's just like, whatever, she's gone. But Griffith, I couldn't fucking hit you. What the hell? But then, I don't know how much you follow, like, football or anything like that. But
I don't.
Okay. For any football fans, and I'm sure there's not a lot because this is an anime channel. But Tom Brady, greatest quarterback of all time, the GOAT. He recently was missing from team practices for 11 days, and it's speculated the reason he was missing was because he was kind of having a relationship issue with his wife, Giselle. And he retired back in February, or I think it was January. He retired for like a month, and then he came back. And she's been pushing for this retirement for years. Like, hey, Tama, I'm worried about your health. You're 45 years old. You've already won 7 Super Bowls. Can you please spend more time with us? Because it's very time-consuming, and, you know, he's risking his health every time he gets out there. But to him, it's more important for his legacy. It's more important to win another Super Bowl. And after listening to that, I thought about Guts. And I'm like, well, Guts and Tom Brady are both Giga Chads. Is that the same for Guts? Even though he loves Casca, it's more important for him to get this revenge on Griffith. It's more important to be a strong swordsman. Not that he doesn't have feelings for her. It's just... it's more than that for him. You know, it's a lifestyle. You know, he's been fighting for years and years. And hell, he left Casca alone for 2 years after the eclipse. He's just like, hey, have fun at Goto's house and playing with Rickard and Erica. Like, I'm going to go try and find Griffith. So in light of that, it kind of does make sense that it's like, hey, I've been trying for 4 years to fucking kill this guy. I have a chance. It's my moment, and I can't do a goddamn thing about it. So, I mean, in that regard, I was like, well, I guess it does make sense that he would be like, fuck, Griffith.
Yeah.
But
it does.
I still felt sad because I just wish there would have been some line of dialogue where he's like, Casca, like... I don't want it to sound too cliched, but like you were taken from me, you know, like you were ripped away, like you ripped out my heart, Griffith.
Well, that's the thing though, because like Griffith is this thorn in his side that has just never gone away. Like, it doesn't matter how much progress he makes. It doesn't matter, you know, the friend group that he created or finding the peace on Elfhelm. It's like Griffith is this thing that he can never let go. That's just always there. And like you said, like you're finally face to face, literally for the first time since the Hill of Swords. Like, it's been a long ass time since they've actually been face to face. And Guts has gone through so much in that time span. And I think for Guts, it's like, I've gone through so much, but I still can't even do it. Like, I can't. I could do nothing. I'm helpless, you know? And that's the worst thing. I really do like that image, though, where he's, like, holding onto the sword. He's, like, kneeling down, like, holding onto it. Yeah, it just, I didn't say it in my review because I wasn't thinking about it, but, like, people in the comments were saying it's, you know, it all goes back to him as a little child, like, wrapping around the sword for comfort.
Yes,
and it's like, god damn, like, nothing fucking changes for this man. Like, you know, it's crazy.
And so yeah. Wasn't that after he got raped by Donovan? Or
yeah, I think so. Yeah, he slept in the tent, you know, cradling his sword and everything.
I know it was when he was very young, but he's represented by that sword. Everything in his life is through the sword, and it almost seems symbolic in a way that he's leaning on his sword. You know, that's the only thing that's making him stand up is the sword. It's like without the Dragon Slayer, he's got nothing. Maybe
his only comfort.
Maybe Griffith should have taken his Dragon Slayer from him, like, ha ha.
Oh man, he like throws Casca down, like no, starts chasing after it.
He leaves Casca on the island, but he takes the Dragon Slayer. He's like, get out of the way, I gotta get that back.
Oh man, that would truly break him.
Oh god, he would turn into Potato Guts.
Yeah, and then it would be like Black Swordsman Casca, like dragging guts around.
Oh man. And that was one of the things I was thinking about in the very first 2 chapters when they came out, was that you know, he just saw the Moonlight Boy transform into Griffith, so there's no ambiguity anymore. They share the same body, and he didn't hesitate. He just tries to swipe through Griffith's head, and I'm just like, he knows that it's a boy, but yet, yeah, you know, he's not like it's not like he's torn in his head. It's like no, we're just Griffith trumps all. I'm gonna kill this motherfucker.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, it's, oh man, I don't know. I mean, I guess literally Griffith, his existence defines his life at this point. It's like he does have friends. He does have Shirka, Isidro, Serpico, you know, Puck, but Casca, but he's just like, you guys are there, but
Yeah.
it's all about Griffith at the end of the day.
Exactly. And it always has been, even in the Golden Age arc. It's just like he sees Griffith as this guy that's just like so far above him, this guy that just knows what he wants, gets his shit done, has his dream. Like, he's just always this person that is up there on the pedestal, and Guts is just trying to survive.
Well, when Guts left the Band of the Hawk and Griffith was in the snow, and it's almost a good parallel, if you will, because Griffith is on his knees and he's defeated, and Guts now is in Elfhelm on his knees hanging onto his Dragon Slayer. It's kind of a nice little parallel where it's like Guts left Griffith and now Griffith left Guts. And it's almost like, okay, now we're even. But
yeah, right. It's all for that moment. It really is. It really is, though, when you think about it.
Yeah, but like, how Griffith went to Charlotte and he was trying to kind of console himself through Charlotte and trying to attain...
As any man would.
Yes. And I think I would have went for Casca, but, to each their own. And... he's trying to console himself, but he keeps thinking about Griffith, he keeps thinking about Guts. He can't get him out of his head. It's like these two have this relationship with each other, even though they have other people in their lives. For Griffith, it's all about Guts, and for Guts, it's all about Griffith. It's as close to love as two men can get without being...
Yeah, that's what they just need to kiss and get it over with, like, for real. That's the ending of Berserk, as they finally just get together.
Griffith's like, it's all about you, Guts. Like, I wanted,
always has been.
I wanted to be your queen.
I could see it, man. Imagine the fan base. Oh my god.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, and Griffith has had opportunities to kill Guts. I mean, hell, he could have killed him at Elfhelm if he wanted to.
Yep.
Why does he keep him alive? Why does he torture him? Is it because it's like, you rip my heart out of my chest, like, I want you to come back into my life. I want you to accept me.
So it is weird. It is weird because it could be many things. It could be that there is like that lingering thing where, I don't know if it would be the Moonlight Boy's influence to the same degree as not harming Casca, but maybe he doesn't. Maybe he like can't, harm Guts in that way. Or, like you said, maybe it's just a matter of like, I still want you around in some way. It doesn't seem like maybe it's just indifference, Like, it doesn't seem like he's going out of his way to torture Guts, but when they're face to face and the shit goes down, it's just like rubbing salt in the wound at that point, you know what I mean? But besides that, I mean, Griffith's doing his own thing. Like, he's off conquering the world, right? So, but at the same time, it is that thorn in each other's side. It's that thing that they can never get out of their heads, no matter what. And it's like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what the word for it would be, you know what I mean?
I mean, unless Griffith is thinking
Bromance, I don't know.
I mean, unless Griffith is thinking like, I mean, I would think he knows that Guts has a Baelitz in his possession. I mean, did the Moonlight Boy ever see it, or
I
don't know. I don't know, but like Griffith being Griffith, he probably knows. I mean, well, if we go back to the Black Swordsman arc with the situation with the Count, he might know that he took it after the fact. And the God Hand exists in that world as like thoughts and emotions. Like when we saw that whole ceremony with like the it was in Albion when Nina was going to that sex cult.
Yes.
And remember how there was a fire, and in the smoke we saw the image of Slan, and she talks about in Quipalth that she's been watching Guts all this time, and Skull Knight even says, prior to the whole ceremony, I know I'm jumping around a lot, sorry.
You're good.
All these thoughts are sort of like just in my head.
Yeah.
He talks about how they exist in the world, they're everywhere and yet nowhere, and they exist as like thoughts. So I would think that Griffith kind of has an idea of what Guts is going through at all times, and he must know that he has a Baelitz. And so because Slan sort of teased Guts, saying, why don't you make a sacrifice like he did, I'm wondering if Griffith is trying to push him over the edge, trying to get him to that point where he would want to make a sacrifice because he sees all this potential in Guts. He's like, a mere mortal can defeat all these apostles. Just think if we could turn him into an apostle. Like, imagine the possibility.
Yeah.
Like, he would be stronger than Zod. He might even rival the God Hand. And they're like, shit, like, if Slan wants it, maybe Griffith wants it. And I don't know, maybe that's the whole reason of keeping him alive and trying to provoke him through taking Casca and through doing all these things that are kind of like snarky and sort of asshole-ish, you know?
I mean, yeah, it's definitely a possibility, especially, I mean, because I always viewed, Zod as kind of being like a parallel to Guts in many ways, and if there was ever going to be a Zod replacement, well, you have a perfect one right there. It's so wild. I mean, that's the thing about Berserk, is like so many potential outcomes are there. It's crazy to think about them all, but I wouldn't put it past him, I wouldn't put it past the idea of just like pushing him into his lowest lows, but I think that's the true test for Guts. I think the true test for Guts is, he will never do the thing that Griffith did. Like, because not only did he just experience it firsthand, but just he is that guy. He is the guy that says F you to fate. He is the guy that struggles through. He's the guy that, against all odds, stands up once again. And that's what I love so much about his character. So I'd be stoked for that moment. If there was a moment where that was happening, and like the Bela was like activating and shit, and like Guts had to come down to that, I'd love to watch it, because I would love to see Guts' character, make that decision. Yeah,
absolutely. And well, here, more headcanon, but say Guts gets to Falconia and he confronts Griffith again, and say Griffith, he just lies to Guts. He's like, I killed Casca. You don't think maybe at that moment he would be willing to sacrifice his friends? Like, fuck Isidro and Serpico and this little lowly witch. Like, I don't need him anymore. It's all about Griffith. I mean, if the first words out of his mouth after Casca was taken is, I couldn't land a single blow, I mean, it's pretty clear that that's a lot more important than, the friends that he's made over these past couple of arcs. I would think maybe that might be a situation. If he thought that Casca was gone, maybe he would just be like, okay, well, fuck it. I'm just going to go for it now and take my chances.
Man, I don't know, man, because I that's an intense situation.
Yeah.
I'm with you there. I don't think that he would, though. I think ultimately Guts is staying true to the path of just, I'm not messing with this shit. Like, that is who he is. Ultimately, but I would love to see him posed with that choice, though. I would love to see him in that moment to see how he responds.
Yeah, no, and I agree with your conclusion. I mean, even though I'm posed in these hypothetical situations, I still think no matter what happens, he's not going to give in. Like you said, he's that dude. Like, he's not going to give up. And another thing I was thinking about too, when Guts was fighting Griffith and he was getting very pissed off and angry and everything like that. One of the things I was wondering at the time was, how come he didn't give in to his urges and unleash the Berserker armor? Like, why was that never something that came up? I'm wondering what your thoughts were on that.
I have a couple ideas with that as well. My number one is that even though the chapter came out a long time ago, in continuity, it was only a few chapters ago where he saw the history of Skull Knight, and he saw like that eclipse and the memories of the Berserker armor. He knows at this point, like fully confirmed, that like Skull Knight died while using this armor, while just being in that absolute rage state, and it took him over and his body couldn't take it. He bled out, and that's what led Skull Knight to becoming what he is. And I would imagine that is very fresh in Guts' memory, and perhaps one of the reasons he suppressed the armor was because he doesn't want that to ultimately happen. He doesn't want to end up like Skull Knight did, right? Another reason I think is because I think it was very, very personal. And I think with the Berserker armor taking over, he has in the past, lost his sense of self several times while using it. And I feel maybe part of the reason too was that this is between him and Griffith. Like, this is this is a personal mano-a-mano thing. It's like, I want to be the one that kills you. Not the berserker state, not some blind rage where I don't remember it. Like, it's going to be me. So those are the two reasons that I kind of like put together, and I think they both kind of make sense. There was like a very quick panel. You could see the berserker armor like on his back. You know how it like creeps up sometimes. You saw that. And so it wasn't that the, you know, Mori or the creators forgot, you know, how the berserker armor works. It's not
Darn
like it's not like Toriyama, you know, forgetting a Super Saiyan form. You know, it's like you know, they know what's going on. So I think that panel was meant to signify like, yes, it could activate, but Guts was purposely holding it back. That's what I think.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess if that's the case, I don't know if it was illustrated clear enough. You know what I mean? Like I didn't immediately jump to that conclusion, and I guess I'm still thinking about it because, like, I mean, he knows about the dangers. I mean, Skull Knight told him about the dangers on the beach, and you know, I guess maybe the last time we saw him with the berserker armor was when he was fighting the sea god, I believe. That was
I think so. Yeah.
That was probably the last time, and
other than like when the berserker memories were happening, like it did take over when he was with Hanar, but that wasn't like a fight. But yeah,
true. And after that fight with the sea god, you know, he was resting in the boat, and he was looking up at the lights, and it was very blurry. It was just this kind of like blurry image. He couldn't really distinguish out details whatsoever. And then he had that flashback to the Skull Knight, and he's like, Mother Effer was right. Like, you know, my senses are all going here. And, you know, we had that situation too where he was training with his sword and it fell out of his hand and, you know, was kind of trembling a little bit. So, there's a lot of validity to what you're saying. Maybe he's just like, I can't do this. Like, maybe that next time is the last time, and that beast of darkness just consumes my ego completely, and I'm the Skull Knight, and I don't want that. Like, you know. Yeah,
that's what I was going with. And you're right. Like, there was that training scene was actually like one of the scariest moments in the manga for me. I'm like, Guts is just like sitting there practicing, and the sword slips out of his hand. This is Guts. The sword doesn't slip out of Guts' hand. You know what I mean? Like, that's terrifying. So I think all that plays a factor into it. Yeah.
Yeah, oh man, it's one of those things. I definitely think we'll see it at some point in the future, but you know, I mean, I guess if he's scared of that possibility, I guess you have to think about, well, why not just not wear the armor anymore? Like, why not just go back to the cannon arm and the repeating crossbow? I mean, I know the armor is a huge boost in energy, but maybe it's just too risky at this point. I mean, maybe it's playing with fire, as it were.
Yeah, I think all of it comes together, everything that we were talking about, because if you think about it, if the next time he uses his armor could be the last time, if the Bailet activates, there's a choice there. It's just like he's at the end of every single rope. Like, there's just some dark path that has to happen here, and it's like it could be one of any of them. And I think the story is doing a really good job at like setting all of those, you know, cards in play. It's just a matter of like which one is going to be the one that's drawn. You know what I mean? Unless
this is the moment where Hanar is like, hey, that Bailet's and that sword of yours.
Yes,
you know that whole theory you were talking about.
The Bailet Dragon Slayer, bro. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, he's like, you know what? It's too risky. Take that armor off. Let's make you a new weapon, and let's let things play out here.
Listen, if that happens, bro, I don't know. I just want people to hashtag Ryan was right. That's all I want. No, I think it could though, because you know, Skull Knight had a great idea. Let's create a dimension sword that can open a portal straight to hell and suck the God Hand in. Brilliant idea. He tries it. Doesn't work. But Guts' sword on its own can already harm on a physical and astral level. So imagine you
cut off a piece of Griffith's hair.
Exactly. So imagine you take the sword that can already do that and then add the power of the Bailet sword with it. Bruh, there you go. That's your ace in the hole right there. I don't know. If that happened, though, I'll be very stoked. I'd be very, very happy if it did. Plus, just how cool would that look? That'd look like... you ever played with Soul Calibur games or anything like that?
No.
Back in the day? There's a character called Nightmare. He's got like a big huge like gut sword with like an eyeball on it. I just imagine it looking like kind of like that. I don't know, but yeah. I would love to see that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just there's so many theories out there right now, and there's so many questions, and yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll see some of that resolved in the next chapter. I guess, are there any questions that you have for me at this point? I know I've been asking a lot of questions.
Man, we've covered so much. I'm trying to think. I mean, I guess just in general, what do you think the next like stage of the story is going to be? Do you think we're going to get the boat arc part 2? Do you think we're going to switch to Rickert and company? Do you think we're going to go to Falconia and follow Casca? What's the next story arc?
Yeah, that's interesting because the next chapter is going to be the last chapter of the Fantasia arc, I believe, because they said 6 chapters.
Or at least like the Elf Island segment. It might be a whole new arc. It might be like Fantasia part 2. I don't know. But it's definitely going to be the last of like the Elf Helm segment. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess, they're going to kind of resolve the aftermath of what just happened, and maybe try to get on Roderick's boat and get out of there, or... Yeah, it's hard to say. Maybe, well, I would imagine they don't want to go through a whole long boat arc again. The mages can fly on brooms, so maybe they're all going to get on, like, someone's broom. Hopefully Guts gets on Morta's broom. And
where is Morta, by the way? She wasn't in... She
was mysteriously gone.
Chapters.
Yeah,
she's just gone.
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, that's really disappointing because...
It's just like my real life, dude. They just disappear. Just leave me. Every time. Anyways,
oh man,
that's my own struggle.
Oh man, yeah. I mean that such a voluptuous character. You would think she would be there, but
where is she?
But yeah. I mean, maybe they leave on Roderick's boat. Maybe they get on everyone's brooms. Maybe Getfring has some mode of transport that's faster. I would imagine we're not going to go through 40 chapters of traveling back to the mainland and then you're getting to Falconia.
I wonder if a character there knows how to like travel on the beams like the Moonlight Boy does.
Oh, like the World Spiral Tree?
Yeah.
Maybe. Oh, yeah. That would be interesting because
Roderick's whole boat, like going on the beam, that'd be great.
Like wasn't it Peter Pan's boat that could fly in the air?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. So, yeah, some Disney movie or something.
Yeah.
But maybe. I mean, we know that Sonia and Griffith can ride the World Spiral Tree, and the reason that Sonia can do it is that she can predict the future, because she's like, otherwise, if just some normal person went, you would get so disoriented, you would never know where you are. So maybe Getfring or someone on the island has that ability. Maybe they're going to ride on the World Spiral Tree. That would make a lot of sense, because I just can't imagine them going on the boat again. I think that would just take too long.
Yeah.
And maybe they're just kind of like, okay, Roderick, like, you kind of served your purpose, like, see you later, we're going on the World Spiral Tree. And then maybe as they get on the World Spiral Tree, that's time for a little bit of flashback. Maybe Skull Knight's riding with them and he's like, okay, let me tell you what happened 1,000 years ago, guy.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about the shit,
Okay, and kids, sit down.
Story time. Yeah. And yeah, maybe we find out more about the Sage in the Tower, i.e. Void, or who we believe to be Void. Maybe we learn more about the Lady Priestess of Cherry Blossoms. And I was on SkullKnight.com, and someone kind of posed this interesting theory about the Lady Priestess of Cherry Blossom. So you know how Griffith, when he went through the ceremony during the eclipse, and his physical body was sort of, I don't know, it was torn away, and he was given this new astral body, and he became Femto. However, there was this ceremony that Skull Knight was talking about, where every 1,000 years, someone is reborn into the physical world, and it was Griffith. So not only did he have this astral body where he's Femto, but he had this physical body where he's Griffith. And I think someone was mentioning, like, because remember how Donnan had that transformation where she became the Flower Storm Monarch, but then she also had this mage-like body as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm like thinking, was the Lady Priestess, was that because she had this resemblance to Donnan? did she die, and then did she manifest in the physical realm? Because remember how Skull Knight and Donna were looking at each other almost like they were past lovers or something. There was this really interesting exchange, and it's like there's something going on there. And
I definitely think that's correct, or close to like exactly what that could be, if that was like an incarnation of that time. Or they talked about how Flora used taboo magic at one point, and that's why she was exiled. Maybe that was part of it. Maybe it was leading the charge of whatever ritual took to bring Danon back, or whoever it was. Maybe it's a reincarnation, maybe it's I don't know. Some people said it was maybe like a descendant, like Skull Knight's child, like the Moonlight Boy, but like Skull Knight's child. So like Danon, there's a lot of potential of what it could be.
So like the inverse of like the Moonlight Boy, because he was the he was the demon child, and now you got this like benevolent child or something.
Yeah, something like that. But I think all of it could be completely valid. Like there's a lot you could do with it. So I say bring on the Skull Knight backstory and just let us know, give us the full details. Let's go. Yeah,
absolutely. I would love to see a situation in which we see Rickert training in the mountains with Salat and the Bakiraka. That would be very interesting.
Yeah.
Or maybe how, remember when Casca's memories came back and then she was about to see Guts and then she screams, and then we had that transition to Falconia and Griffith. Was that? Yeah.
You're right.
They were fighting the giants, and then they went back to Falconia. Maybe we have a change in perspective again. Maybe we go back to Falconia, and maybe Casca meets up with Charlotte and Sonya, and then we have that little exchange. I just wonder, like, I wonder how the various apostles are going to feel about, like, Griffith coming in completely naked with this girl in his arms. Yeah, especially Sonya. Yeah. Like, what the fuck? Yeah. Like, it was bad.
Who's branded.
It was bad enough you were with freaking Charlotte, but now this bitch is in the picture too.
Hey, she's got to expect that when she goes for a high status guy like Griffith, right? Come on. No, yeah, you're absolutely right, because apostles and dark creatures are drawn to the brand, right? So Griffith is going to have to like put a no touching policy on her or something like that, or tell people to like F off. I mean, I don't really know, but I do think, like I was saying earlier, I think she will have a bit of free reign in the kingdom. Probably not the whole, wholeness of Falconia, but I don't think she's going to be like locked in a like prison. You know what I mean? I think she's going to be able to wander the gardens and stuff like that and see the result of what Griffith did. And yeah, again, like we were saying earlier, I absolutely believe her and Sonya will have an interaction, and things will get very interesting when that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing I was thinking about too, now we know that Luca and the various women, the prostitutes, are at Falconia as well. I wonder if there's ever going to be like some sort of sighting where she sees Casca and she's like, it's Elaine. Like, let me go say hi to her. And
that would be great.
And then maybe if she sees like the whole arrangement, maybe she sees like if she's locked away or whatever it is, that sort of changes her perspective on Griffith. Because overall, most people have this positive impression of Griffith, and a lot of people are speculating that maybe Griffith is congregating all the people in Falconia for like a final sacrifice, and he sort of needs to whip up their emotions, as it were, get all these negative thoughts. And maybe she'll be one of the ones opposing that. Maybe she'll be one of the ones that helps Guts come into Falconia. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. There's so many different things. I mean, we could go to Falconia. We could go to Rickards. We could do flashback time and story time with Skull Knight. So it's hard to say how things proceed from here.
It's so great though. It's so great because it's like there's so much potential. Like, it's not like we're heading towards the finale, but like there's so much that can happen. Like it's insane the amount of possibilities. So that's what gets me excited. Like more than anything, it's like I like when my theories are right, but sometimes I like it better when they're wrong. I'm just like, oh shit, I never like even conceived of that happening. You know what I mean? I love when Berserk does that to us. So that's the thing that I am just like the most excited about. It's just the potential. Whether or not that potential will be fulfilled in the long run with like the new team, yet to be seen. But as of right now, man, I'm just like, I'm stoked, man. Keep giving me monthly chapters and let me just take this ride, man. I don't know. As cheesy as it is, I'm just like, I'm super excited, you know?
Yeah, no, it's an exciting time. I agree with you. Every time a chapter drops, I mean, it's just like my heart starts racing. I'm like, oh God, I got to read this. Like, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
And no matter what you conceive of, no matter what sort of like conclusions we draw in our head, it always comes as a shock. Like, even if you predict something, there's always something else that's like, well, I knew this was going to happen, but I didn't see that happening. Like, we all knew that, you know, the Moonlight Boy and Griffith shared the body. That didn't come as much of a shock to us, but like, still, when we saw chapter 364 and we saw how the transformation took place, it was still an amazing thing. You know, it was like, you didn't see it happening in that way, and that was always the power of Berserk, is that everything comes as sort of a shock, and it's always exciting when it happens. One of the things I wanted to ask you as well is that how much of the story do you think there is left to be told? Do you think Kouji, Mori, and the staff are going to be like, let's get this done in like, I don't know, 40, 50 chapters? Or do you think there's going to be hundreds of chapters? Are we going to get to a chapter 600 one day?
Man, it's really hard to say, especially with like what their intention is with completing it. Like, if it's a matter of like, let's just get this shit done, or, you know, let's play with it and see what happens along the way. I always imagined, and this is just pure speculation, I always imagined Berserk would be like around like maybe 55, 56 volumes, you know what I mean, altogether, like somewhere in like the mid 50s, maybe to 60. I don't think it would go to like 100, you know. I think it would be probably somewhere around there. I always imagine like when Guts gets the Berserker armor is kind of, to me, feels like maybe the halfway point of the series. So that happens in like volume, I think 26, 27, somewhere around there. So I don't know, I always imagined it would be like in the 50s somewhere. So if that is the case, I'd say we still have another 10 to 12 volumes. And if you want to say every volume is like 8 to 10 chapters, then I'd say we probably have like 100 chapters left. That's what I would say, somewhere around there. But that's just headcanon speculation.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, how do you view the series now? Because we were kind of talking about the fact that, you know, at least within our circles of Berserk, the YouTube community, it seems like most people have a positive impression of what's going on. And, you know, there's other people that don't agree with it. There's been YouTubers who don't agree with it. And I'm not going to list names or anything like that. But, you know, that's...
You should. I was kidding.
Most of the audience knows probably who I'm talking about. But anyway... Anyway, like, that's anything with life. I mean, you know, there's going to be people who don't like it. There's going to be people who do like it. I was actually surprised when the chapters first came out, and some people actually said they took a position I didn't expect them to take. They're like, man, Kouji, Mori, and the staff are doing better than Miura. Like, I'm like, okay, I mean, that's definitely your interpretation, your perspective. I respect it. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to hate on you or anything, but I mean, there's definitely people out there like that. But with that all being said, oh God, now I just lost my train of thought.
No, you're good.
So I was
how
talking
the fan
about,
base is good. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. There's people who like it and don't like it. Oh shit, where was I going with this? God
Maybe
damn.
like where we stand in comparison to the fan base overall.
Yeah. I just wonder. God. Okay. Well, I guess I'll make something up now.
You got this.
No pressure.
No pressure.
It seems like at least there's people who do like it. There's people who don't like it, and I wonder how much that's going to influence the staff. Now, like, for example, if it ever gets to a point where it seems like maybe it's middling out, or maybe more people don't like it. Oh no! Now I remember what I was going to say. How do you interpret this new segment of post chapter 364? Is it still canon, or is it something else entirely? Because I see some people online who don't like it are saying Berserk died at chapter 364. Everything that happens past that point is just fan fiction, and there's some people are like, well, it's still Berserk, it's still good enough, and there's people who are like, what are you talking about, guys? I love this. This is what it's always been. So how do you interpret it? Do you make that delineation at past chapter 364, or do you say it's all Berserk at this point? That's how the staff views it. That's how I'm going to view it.
I think I view it as canon, but I don't have anything against anybody that does not, or that doesn't want to read the chapters, or that doesn't want anything past where Miura left off. I can understand it, So I don't have anything against anyone who feels that way. And if you want to consider it, fan fiction or like official fan fiction as a continuation, that's your prerogative. That's fine. I consider it canon mostly because, like I said, we were saying in the beginning with Mori's relationship with Kentaro Miura, like nobody knows the story better. They've been best friends for 30 years. He has all of Miura's notes. He has everything Miura wanted to do with it. He knows that Miura would have wanted him to finish it. To me, there's enough positivity there to lead into me accepting the new chapters, regardless. Even if it starts to suck, I have criticisms with Berserk, very few. It's my favorite series of all time, but some people think that I am just too overly positive sometimes with it, but that's not the case. I've definitely had criticisms with it in the past, and if it continues and, I think it starts to go downhill, I will say it. I will say that I do. But as of right now, I've liked everything that's come out. I think it makes sense for where the story was going. I think that it lines up perfectly with everything that was set up before. So far, there isn't anything for me to, dislike where the story is going. I mean, maybe you can criticize how the story is being told, but once again, we talked about that earlier too. It's not Miura. We have to accept the fact that it's never going to be like that again. So if you accept that, I think that everything that is happening, story-wise, makes total sense. So to me, it's definitely 100% a canon series. So
yeah,
that's what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you as well. I don't make that mental delineation in my head or anything like that. Yes, I mean, I agree with your sentiments. I mean, no one's going to be able to replicate Kentaro Miura's work, his artwork, his storytelling, the way he delivers lines. But I would say when, Skull Knight came in, it was I don't remember the chapter, but he was talking to Isidro, and the dialogue there felt very reminiscent of the Skull Knight. It was very cryptic and deep and complex, and I'm like, if you told me this was Kentaro Miura writing this, I would have believed you. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have any discrepancies or problems with that whatsoever. So, I mean, maybe in the future there will be a moment where it just totally goes downhill. We don't know. We have no idea. But I feel like everything up until this point, like you said, has made sense within the context of the story. There's nothing that's glaring that I would say, well, they forgot about this or they forgot about that. Maybe the only thing I would say is the Berserker armor was why didn't Guts use it? But it's understandable kind of what we talked about earlier where, he's had situations where it's he's gone close to losing his consciousness, losing everything and becoming a mere suit of armor like the Skull Knight. So there's reason to have trepidation. So yeah, I mean, I would say they're doing a very fine job, and what they were given was very difficult because they didn't start a new arc. They had to finish off the Elfhelm arc. That's like cooking a steak 75% of the way and be like, okay, here, Ryan, finish my steak for me. And I just mysteriously fly off the face of the earth, and you're wait, what am I supposed to do? Okay, his notes are here, okay, garlic, rosemary, butter, put it in the oven, it's obviously there's gonna be a little bit of okay, we gotta regroup here. But now that they're starting a new arc, I think this kind of is a fresh groundwork for them to be okay, now we can sort of own this. We can sort of create our own sort of story, if you will. Whereas before it was kind of it's hard to wrap things up, Miura was it seems like 90% of the way done with Elfhelm, and they had to kind of finish off that last 10%. It's not easy. So given what they had, I think they did a very fine job with it.
Yeah, no, I agree absolutely. That was ridiculous cliffhanger to try to follow up, when they started it. Like, oh, where did it leave off? Oh, Guts is face to face with Griffith for the first time in 20 years. That'll be easy to write, like that's an extremely daunting task. So yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And now that they're moving on to the next segment, the next arc, whatever it may be, I think it'll be a lot easier to start things up again than finishing up what was there before. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to start it, but at the same time, it might be a lot harder in a lot of ways as well. It might be like, hey, this is your first time. Like, you had the training wheels on with the Elfhelm arc. You had a story in which Miura told for you. Now you got to tell your own story. Yeah, you got Miura's notes, but this is all you at this point. Studio Gaga, Kouji Mori, like, you got to own it. You got to be able to produce. And so this might be the major test. Yeah, they're starting their own arc and they got all this creative liberty, if you will, but now it's like, hey, go time. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think they're up for the task. I really do. I really think that I don't think Mori would have gone into it if he didn't truly think that this is something. Maybe he didn't think he could. Maybe he just was like, this is something I have to do. It wasn't a question. Maybe it's just like, can I do this? Can I do this? No, I have to do this. So maybe it is that. But maybe that's the push they need. Maybe that's the kind of mentality you need to go into doing something this gigantic. It's just like, no matter what happens, I have to do this. It's very much a Guts mentality. You know what I mean? Like, just like, I got to do it. I have to reach the end. So yeah. Man.
Yeah, absolutely. One last thing, and then we can sort of wrap things up here. Now, this doesn't necessarily pertain to Berserk, but it's kind of all connected. Now, as we know, after Miura's death, I think it was sometime in September, Studio Gaga made the decision that they were going to suspend their production of Duranki. They were done with the 6 chapters, and they were going to make a volume, and they were going to provide various like sketches and unpublicated works of art and such, and they were going to release it in a 1 volume. And I was just wondering, did you think that was the right decision? I mean, in hindsight, it makes sense why they decided to do that, because they wanted to put all their effort behind Berserk. But let's say they continue the monthly releases of Berserk. There's 12 months in a year. Let's say, I don't know, let's say there's like 80 to 100 chapters, so they can get this done in like, say, 7 or 8 years. After that point in time, would you like to see them go back to Duranki and revive the series and try to maybe put the ideas together? I understand Miura might have not told them the vision of what was going to happen, but maybe they just say, let's run with it a little bit. People don't have as much of an attachment to it as they do with Berserk, and just see what happens.
I think that would be great. I enjoyed Duranki, what was available of it. I really hope we get an English release. Actually, I don't know if that's going to be a thing, because I haven't heard any like news of that, but I would love that. I thought it was fun. I thought it was like a nice like adventure series. Kind of reminded me of like Stand By Me or The Lost Boys. That 80s era of like children adventures kind of thing. And then by the last chapter, it started to get a little bit darker, but it was never like Berserk dark. It was just a monster shows up. So, but I was open to it. I like the fantasy stuff they were doing with it. So I'd be cool if they returned to it. The only problem is I feel like if they finish Berserk and they do all that for like 7 or 8 years, like you said, I think by the time Berserk is done, people are going to be like, what's Duranki? It's going to like fall out of the consciousness of people other than like hardcore Miura fans, you know what I mean? So I would love to see more of it. I don't know if they're going to start maybe a brand new manga after that, or if they went back to it, but if they did go back to it, I'd be cool with it. Like, I'd be down to see some more of that world.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with you. It might be a situation too where the various staff and assistants are just like, well, this was Miura's vision. Like, I want to get out there and create my own manga at this point. And it's like, that could be a thing as well. So yeah, I think we covered all the main points. We talked about the 5 chapters, Studio Gaga, Kouji Mori. We even threw in a little bit of Duranki as well. We definitely had a lot of headcanon in there, but
that's what you got to do, man. You got to put the pieces together,
Yeah, absolutely. Is there any final questions you want to mention before we kind of send off here?
I don't think so. I think we covered pretty much everything. The only thing I would say is maybe, depending on what happens in the next chapter, maybe it might be good to do a regroup and talk about the end of the Elfhelm era, But if nothing really happens, then maybe it's not worth it. But if something goes down, it might be worth another conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll do it on your channel next time, and
sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But thanks for coming on the channel again. I always love having these discussions. It always kind of sparks my brain juices a little bit and makes me consider different perspectives. So it's always great having you here.
Absolutely, man. Love it. Anytime.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. Subscribe to Real Life Ryan if you haven't, guys, and subscribe to my channel too.
Yes.
I know Ryan's trying to get to 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I think you're within 7,000. So
yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna do it, man. It's gonna be right on the edge.
Razor's
but if I
edge.
do, I'm gonna have a massive sacrifice of all my subscribers. I mean, I'm gonna have a pizza party with everybody, so it's gonna be great. No one's gonna die.
I guess I'll have to unsubscribe before that happens.
just let it get to the 100K and then unsubscribe, so I'm at 1 away.
Okay. Definitely subscribe to his channel, subscribe to my channel, and just keep the good vibes going, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Heck yeah.